Okay, hello YouTube. This is going to be my last video in my Evans Gambit series. We are going to be covering the Evans Gambit Declined. Now, I know that the Declined seems kind of boring in the Evans Gambit. So this is after e4, e5, bishop c4, bishop c5. We played b4. And in this video, we're going to be covering exclusively the move bishop b6, which is just the Evans Gambit Declined. I know it seems kind of boring, but this has actually become one of the best attempts to try to get equality, at least in recent times. It's actually become something that you do have to be concerned with, especially if you want to play the Evans Gambit. You have to know what to do against the declined variation. So now, there are a couple different ways that you could play it even from here. The main line is just the move a4. Now, of course, if you wanted to, you could just try to play something kind of passive. You could play something like c3 and just hold your pawn, and then you could just kind of play this like a you could play this like a Joko piano with c3 and b4 thrown in, where you've gained a little bit of space on the queen side, and then you can just play kind of like a slow, kind of quiet game Joko piano, Roy Lopez plan kind of setup. And that's fine, and that should actually be, very, very slight edge white if you can't get a slight edge any other way. So now, after bishop b6, it used to be thought that really the best way to get an advantage with white was the move a4, and this is the move that's run into trouble recently. Now, of course, a4, I'm threatening to trap this bishop, so we're going to have to play either a6 or a5. Now, the move a5, this has been nothing special for a very long time. Actually, this goes all the way back to 1995. Again, a Garry Kasparov game that went b5, and then after knight d4, Garry just exchanged on d4, and then played c3, and then played d4. And this ended up being advantage white, and this was nothing to write home about for black. This was just advantage white, and of course Garry, with all of his skills, went on to win this game. So this hasn't been terribly respected or thought to be all that great for the longest time. It's thought to just lead to a very comfortable slight edge white. So the main move that we're focusing on here is a6. And then the main move here for white is the move knight to c3. And then the main move is still, and has always been, knight f6. Now, of course, d6 is an alternative, but this isn't considered all that scary. This is actually considered kind of dangerous. Like after d3, this is definitely slight edge white. One of the difficulties is it's hard now to develop this knight to f6 because, of course, now we're going to play bishop g5 and create this pin. And this is a very bad situation for black. Black's going to get his pawns messed up, and this is just advantage white. This is slight edge to major advantage white after bishop g5. So that's why d6 isn't typically the move here. The typical move is knight f6. Although considering some of the ideas that have been thrown out, d6, maybe people might come back to it, and here's the reason why. After knight d5, the modern attempt that's getting tried here is the move d6, and I'll come back to this move in a minute. So I guess it would also be possible to play this move order with d6, knight d5, and then knight f6 before d3. Might be another possibility to consider. Now, after knight d5, if we play something like, say, knight takes d5, we're going to take back with the pawn. And the reason this works is because knight takes b4 isn't a great idea. After knight b4, we're going to play c5, bishop c5, and then c3. And as you can see, this knight is trapped. And there's a little bit of tactical maneuver. You can play a little bit of tactical chess here, but basically white just has a major advantage here. So we don't want to do this. We don't want to play knight takes b4. The only other line worth trying, and this was the old main line, was just knight to d4. And then we're going to gain a little bit of space. We're going to play a5. And then there's been two different attempts in this position. I would say that Mirosevic came up with kind of a creative attempt here. He played d6 in this position, but he ended up not getting a great result with it. And even though it looks really cool, we're going to seal in this bishop pretty much forever, he ended up not being able to score a point with it. So I don't know if this is necessarily the way to go, because as you can see in the game that Mirosevic played this, black ended up coming out okay, and everything seemed okay for black in spite of the fact that it does look like a pretty cool sealer sacrifice, but it doesn't quite seal. So it seems like black is kind of escaping there. So I recommend just keeping the pawn and just going with kind of the older move, just castle, because black doesn't have a whole lot better than knight f3, queen f3, d6, d3, and this position is just, this is nothing nothing special for black, and this is just slight edge white. White has a little bit more space, and white has a very comfortable position here. So an example would be, takes queen e3, bishop d7, and then you would break in the middle with d4, and this is just simply slight edge white. Okay, so rewinding again, these old main lines weren't giving white any headaches. White was getting a slight advantage in both of these old main lines with knight d5, and then knight takes d5. The new line here is the move d6. Okay, and I'll just do a brief side note here. Knight takes e4. This has been kind of known to be advantage white after just castles, d3, and then again this idea with bishop g5. This has been known to be advantage white for a very long time. This is just advantage white. Okay, so let's go back to this move, d6. So this move recently was played in Grischuk versus Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen, of course, playing the black pieces. And that game ended up going very badly for Grischuk. Grischuk took on b6, and then after c captures b6, again, this looks very good. We have these messed up pawns. Grischuk played d3, which I agree with. You have to play d3, you have to hold this pawn, you have to threaten bishop g5 and all this other stuff. Carlsen just castled, and then Grischuk castled, and then Carlsen just cold-blooded and dangerous as Carlsen is. He just took on b4. And Grischuk wasn't able to prove that he had enough compensation for the pawn that he just sacrificed. And that's in spite of the fact that all of black's pawns are ridiculously messy here, and he has a lot of pressure on the b6 pawn. Part of the problem is Carlsen has a lot of counter pressure on the c3 pawn. And he wasn't quite able to hold this position against Magnus. Magnus ended up just outplaying him, winning material, keeping it, and Grischuk ended up going on to lose with the white pieces. He's down a clear pawn here. So what is kind of my recommendation at this point if white wants to keep playing for an advantage? And I wouldn't just say my recommendation, but maybe I would dare say possibly like the only recommendation at this point to continue playing for an advantage, at least in this version of the decline, unless you just want to play a quiet game where you have a very slight edge. I would say right here, I would say you have to not allow knight takes b4. So I don't think castles is the way to go. I think you need to insert the move bishop to d2 here, and you just need to hold this pawn. And I think there's a lot to play for here. I think you can play chess from here, and I think this is still slight edge white. Now, I don't have any games to show you from here because this is, at this point, we're in pretty unexplored territory. This is the cutting edge of theory at this point. So you're going to have a lot of freedom here to just play chess, or a lot of freedom to work this out on your own and come up with what you think the best lines are after bishop to d2. But I do believe that bishop d2 at this point is just slight edge white. I think that you can play for an advantage from here. And I think that this allows you to continue to play the Evans Gambit, for an advantage, or at the very least continue to play the Evans Gambit and not worry about getting anything less than equality. So this will conclude my video series on the Evans Gambit. Like I said before, I think in modern practice, I think there are basically three lines that give the Evans Gambit any kind of difficulty at all. I think this line, I think the declined, I think I think the variations I gave with bishop e7 followed by d6. And I think that the only other line that you have to worry about are those variations in bishop a5 with d4, d6, queen b3, and then queen d7, where they give the pawn back after d captures e5. And I think that's pretty much it. I think those are the only lines that are giving white any fear of black equalizing. And I don't think it's a question of is black better. I think it's a question of how equal is black and how difficult is it for white to continue to play for a win. I hope that you found this video helpful, and I hope that you learned something new about chess, and have fun playing the Evans Gambit. It's a great opening. Thanks for watching.